Okay, if you've had a chance to enter your points using the northing and easting input, you should have all of your points in. They may not be showing up, so we're going to go ahead and do a zoom extents. So I'm going to do a zoom, enter, enter, zoom it out. Try that again. There we go. Alright, now what you might notice on mine, it's incorrect. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 looks great. I actually have a couple mistakes. There's that one, and this one is definitely in the wrong spot. So what we're going to do is go to the all points point group, and I'm just going to open up my edit points, and I can notice that somehow I got the word, the numbers in here for the raw description. Check my point numbers, make sure that those are correct. They look correct, and so that's fine, but what I have is a problem here, so I'm going to correct that. Fixes that one. Now that one's corrected, and this one is wrong because I've got the northing and easting swapped. So what I'm going to do is delete that, type in the proper value, and the proper value here, and notice it fixed it. So the beauty of this is you can have issues and fix them in here, but the problem is that you can also make mistakes and move things around. So there isn't a way to lock points. If you don't want points moving, there's a way to what's called lock a point. What I've done is locked all of those points. Notice that symbol tells me they're locked. That keeps me from inadvertently trying to grip on this thing and move it. So I can't just move it by visually moving it. So now we should have our good control points in there. And what we're going to do is create a point group specifically for our control point groups. So what we're going to do is go into point groups, right click and say new. And this guy pops up. And right now the information tab tells me it's going to create a new point, generically just call it point group 1. What we want to do is call this point group control. So I'm going to call it control, and I'm going to change the style. I'm going to use what's called a benchmark for the marker. I'm going to leave, well actually I'm going to take this off because I don't really need that. So I'm just going to say point number and description. And what we're going to do is tell it what to include. So in the include tab, we want to tell it what to include. Now you can include all points, you can include based on elevation or number matching or whatever. We're going to do it with a description matching, and I'm going to call this control. Watch it, they used to be case sensitive. It looks to me, I've noticed that they don't seem to be as case sensitive anymore. So what we're going to do is go ahead and call that control, okay that. You may notice your points swapped here, okay? And the reason is they are now in that group, but they actually are still in the all points point group as well. I want you to notice over here, we see control and we see all points point group. So we've created two, and actually these all have the same exact points in them. Control is sitting on top of all points, and so there's a hierarchy of how this works. It's kind of like layering, if you will. So if I go up here and go to properties, notice there's my hierarchy control. Control is above all points. If I click on points and promote it to the top, notice what happens. Those now are taking precedent over what's there. Okay, so we're going to be utilizing this concept because this is an important concept. In fact, we'll be creating another point group that's called a blank point group that will include all of our points and then allow us to generate a layer, if you will. It's like a blank layer in between. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to create this new layer. We're going to call this layer blank. Now it's important, what we want to do is set the style to none, and we want to set the label style to none. So this is going to be like freezing a layer, if you will, and we want to make sure that we include every point. So as we create points, they all are going to go in here. Now what's happened to our points? Notice over here the blank point group is sitting above all of these. So from a hierarchy standpoint, it's turned everything off. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to point groups, properties. We're going to set the point blank down one level, and we're going to actually move that down as well, and I want to move control up to the top. So what I want is control, blanks in between, and then I've got all points. So we're going to apply that, and notice what we're seeing just right now is just strict control points. So now that we have all of our control points in, and we have our point groups in, and everything's linked that way, we're going to begin to look at a little bit of line work, and then we'll come back and look at some more point issues. So we're going to generate some lines, and we're going to use this area in here, this draw section, but before we do that I want to look at layers to make sure I'm putting it on proper layers. Right now it's set to go onto an annotation layer. If we open this layer section up here, you'll see you've got lots of layers that are already created in the Civil template, Imperial template, and you'll notice these are following the AIA guidelines for layering, and it's kind of a process where the A references or means architecture, and C references or means civil, and I think they have at the bottom, they have V, which is referencing for surveying. So we're going to grab one called V control traverse. V control trav, let's see, it's down here, right there. So I'm going to make that my current layer, and I'm going to generate my line work on that. So there's several different ways that we can generate line work. If we open up the line command here, this is more than just the AutoCAD line command. As you can see, this is essentially what the create line is. If we go down below, though, we can do it by point range or point object, point name, by northing easting, all different options here. We have points up here, and we have by point object. So what we can do is use this create line by point object. So what I'm going to do is select that, and all I have to do is merely touch the point anywhere, click it, and notice what it's doing is it's just generating these lines very nice for me. And when I get done, I just want to hit the escape key twice, and I'm good. So you can see what it's done is it's snapped directly to that. If you're using OSNAPs, you have to be careful. The snap is actually called a node OSNAP. So if you were using an OSNAP node, that would get you to the same thing. You also have these things over here, then your transparency commands, and these are very useful to actually make any AutoCAD command recognize or reference points. And right in this area right here, we notice we have point number, point name, and there's point object. So the way this would work is, I'm going to delete these out real quick. Let's say we wanted to put in an arc here, a 3-point arc, utilizing these 3 points. If I went into the normal arc command, I could just type in A for arc, which gives me a 3-point arc, and it wants to know a start point. What I can do at this point is go over here, grab the point object, select that point object, that point object, and that point object. And what I've done is turned that normal AutoCAD command in that is normally looking for an OSNAP or some other kind of input, northing and easting or XY, and done it conveniently with points. So we can see that this is going to be a real enhancement. So I'm going to just go ahead and take this arc out, and what I'm going to do is regenerate that line. And again, since this is already conveniently set for me, I don't have to grab those transparent little guys. I can just come over here, point object, pick it, pick it, pick it, and pick it. Hit escape twice, and what we're going to do is zoom extents. So if you refer to your drawing now, you'll notice we have a lot of information to establish points, and some of these things are using angles, some of these things are using intersections. So what we're going to do is take a look at a couple of these options and generate points and show you how this will work. If you notice point 11, which is not too far located off of 4, it's kind of over in the northwest corner here. We're going to generate point 11, and we notice that what we have is an angle that is given off of the line 3, 4, and a distance from 4 out to 11. And we're assuming that someone occupied point 4 and backsided point 3 with an instrument and turned an angle to the left. And that's a critical component because with Civil 3D, if you're turning angles to the left, that'll be a negative input. When we're turning them to the right, that'll be a positive input. So what we're going to do is go ahead and set up a point. So we're going to go points, create points miscellaneous. We're going to look over here in this list, and you see there's one there, angle. What angle will prompt me for is to select a line, And there's other methods I can use, but line's very convenient because all I have to do is select it. Now be selective with the line selection, because you have to make sure you select it close to 4 where you're occupying, because that's where the instrument's going to go. So I'm going to select it close to 4, and notice you get the symbol, the little yellow instrument symbol, the green symbol is your back sight, and the magenta symbol is your foresight. So what it's asking me for right now is an angle, and notice it specifies counterclockwise or clockwise. We are going to be counterclockwise, so I'm going to type in a negative, and I'm going to enter it as 119 degrees with a 0.4645. It'll recognize that as 46 minutes and 45 seconds if we've set up our settings correctly. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and then it wants to come back and ask me a distance, and that will be 32.02. Enter that. Now it needs to know a point number. In this case, we're going to call it 11. And this guy, we'll call this an iron pin. So I'm going to make sure I've got my cap locks on. I'm going to put IP for iron pin. So this represents a property corner. And at this point, you should see 11 in that position. Go ahead and hit the escape key twice to terminate this, and you'll notice that that's there. This point also got created in the all points point group. But notice over here, blank is saying that there has been a change, but it needs to be updated. So this point at this point really doesn't exist in the blank, or it's recognized that it needs to be updated. So eventually we can update it, but we can do that now if we just click on that, right click, and say update. What that'll do is make sure that's in there, and notice it actually did disappear. So that's probably not a good thing. We want to see what we're doing, so we're going to go ahead and go to the point groups, and I'm just going to drop the blank at the bottom so that everything's on top. And as we're working, we'll just see everything. Notice your points back. Okay, so if we go down now to 0.5, traverse 0.5, we'll notice that we have two inputs down there. 0.19, which is kind of over in this direction, that's a turned angle, and 0.12, which is down over here, that's a deflection angle. So we'll do the turned angle first, and then we'll come back and do the deflection angle. So again, we're going to go ahead, create points by turned angle, select your line closest to 5, instrument setup and backsight looks correct, and this is again a negative angle, negative 39, 37, 36. Distance 188, 24. Okay, point number is 19. This is going to represent for us a manhole, so I'm just going to put MH for manhole. And escape twice. What that does is allows me to then see that that point's in place. So we'll do one more from 5. Another setup with a different type of angle type. This one is a new one. It's called a deflection angle. Deflection angle is defined as the prolongation of the backsight. So what it's going to do is actually backsight 4. However, it's going to really look at it from a 180 direction. So what we're going to do is select deflection, click it near 5, and notice the backsight is over at 4, but it's coming off of the prolongation. So deflection angles work like normal angles. Positive is a clockwise, negative is counterclockwise. So what we're going to go ahead and do is enter that as a positive angle. That's 31, 45, 24. Distance 64, 53. Point number would be 12. And this will also be called an iron pin. And escape twice. Anybody that's worked extensively in the field will recognize the fact that you're not turning angles to the left very often, nor are you turning deflection angles and angles at the same time. You're usually generating or using one kind of angle if you're using some kind of total station instrument or whatever. So this is just a little bit of a different process, just so that we can see how this all works. So what we're going to do now is come over here to 0.6, and we're going to create 0.13, which is another point of control or boundary, and 17, which is another manhole point. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to points, create points, and I'm going to do the angle first. So that's instrument at 6, backsight 1, so I'm going to set up here, There's my instrument at 6, backside 1. This is a positive angle, so it's a positive 119, 13, 11. Distance is 58, 31. Okay, and at this point then we'll give it the point number. And this is a point out in the center of the road, so we're going to say that this is a PK nail. I'm just going to call it description PK. So there's my PK point. Go ahead and hit the escape key, and we're going to do miscellaneous deflection angle. No, that's a turned angle also, but it's a different backside setting. So we're going to, okay, and this one will be an angle to the left. So this will be a negative 107, 53.24. Distance of 114.02. The manhole is 17, and the description is manhole. Okay, escape twice. One more to go here. What we're going to do now is establish point 8, which is out in the intersection of Pleasant Valley Road and US 127. So again, that is a turned angle, or let's see, yeah, that's a deflection. So you got to look and be careful. Deflection is indicated by that little prolongation coming off here. So I'm going to select it near point 1. So it's backsiding 6, and you can see my prolonged line. Turning it to the right, that's a positive angle of 50, 43.08. The distance is 50.43. So we're going to go ahead and enter that. We will call this point 8, and we will call this also a PK nail. So escape twice. So at this point now we do have some different points in that we're going to establish into a point group. We have manhole points, so we're going to create a manhole or a sewer point group. And we have control points for the boundary, iron pins, and PK nails. So what I want to do is go ahead and do some line work first, and we'll generate some point groups. So let's go ahead and we're going to grab a layer here. We're going to use a layer that is going to be called C property line. So we're going to go up to the C values, and so here's our C prop line. And I'm going to make that the current layer. And what I'm going to do is connect the iron pins together with the PK nails. So make sure that you don't get a manhole. I did that earlier when I was running through something, so you gotta watch it. So I'm going to create line by point object. I'm going to go from 11 to 12, and then to 13 the PK, and then from 13 back up to 8. And we'll hit escape. Okay. Now we also have some other boundary points, and you'll notice on our sketch we have a point 9 and 10 that we do not have in there, but we didn't locate those. So either they didn't exist out in the field, or we're going to set those some other method. So we'll take a look at that. And then we also have a sewer pipe or a sewer manhole point missing at 18, and that's somewhere about right in the center. And we're going to go ahead and establish that as well, but we're going to use a different technique for that too. I'm going to close this here for a minute, and what we're going to do is come over here to point groups, and what I want to do is create a new point group. Okay, and we're going to call this boundary. Okay, and I'm going to find, let's see if we can find a nice mark here. Let's see if they've got one that looks good. Not sure what their bound looks like. I'll go use with the iron pin. So I'm going to set that to iron pin. And my description, I'm just going to put the description only in this one just so we can see some differentiation. Now, what I do want to tell it to do is to include all of the points that belong to the boundary. So we're going to go to the Include tab. And here we want to hit with raw descriptions matching. So what we're going to do is type in IP, and then a comma, and then PK, and go ahead and apply that, and then go to your point list, and it'll show you what exists in that point list currently, and it should just be your PK and IP points. And if you've misspelled something and didn't pick it up, so we should have it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what I'm seeing, 8, 11, 12, and 13, and that's what we want to see. That's good. So I'm going to go ahead and OK that. And notice this group of points now exists here. You're not seeing their symbology, I don't believe, yet. It looks like
Actually, we are. Okay, so there's the IP symbol, and notice that is the control symbol, so they are recognizing themselves differently. And we haven't created a manhole layer yet, or manhole group, so we're going to go ahead and do that. While we're at it, why don't we go ahead and update the blank group? So I'm going to click on that and do a update. So it's just generated all those points now within that section. Okay. So we're going to establish point 9, and if you look at this and the plat, you have a plat also that is associated with this, and it shows you a final distance of 300 feet and a bearing of north 88 1256 east. So what we're going to do is establish that point sitting up at point 8, our PK now. And actually I have railroad spike out on my picture I just noticed, but it doesn't really matter for our purposes. Um, so what we're going to do is establish this point from the PK now. We're going to generate a point out along this distance, 300 feet at 88 1256. Now you could really do this two ways. You could establish the point first using the bearing and the distance and then draw the line between them. Or we could draw the line first and then snap the point to the end point of that line using what's called a manual point creation. So you really kind of have two choices. I'm going to go ahead and do the point option because we're more likely to do that more often. So we're going to hit the miscellaneous here. What I want to do is by bearing. Okay, so bearing is going to want me to establish a point. Now, this has a built-in thing, and this is kind of a thing that's left over from Land Desktop. Land Desktop had this. It was really nice. Down at the bottom, you notice a point P, point N, point G, and I'm talking about down in this area. Point P references point, object, or point number. You have point N, which is northing and easting, and point G, which is your point snap. So if you select either a point P or point G, if you type in point P, you would have to type in the number 8. And if you do a point G, you can snap to just the word PK. So what I'm going to do is type in point P and hit enter, and it'll ask me for the point number, and that would be point number 8. So I'm going to type in an 8 and hit enter, and you'll notice it sets my instrument up at point 8, and it gives me quadrants. And the bearing it's going to ask for is first the quadrant number. So the quadrants, as you see listed, northeast over here, this is 1. Quadrant 2 is southeast. Southwest is 3, and northwest is 4. So we are in the bearing is spec'd as a northeast, which is actually over here. I could do that, but I'm going to convert that to the quadrants. So remember, northeast is the same thing as southwest. So we're going to use a southwest. Okay, southwest is 3. Specify the bearing. The bearing will be 88, 12, 56. And then we're going to go out the distance, which is 300 feet. Okay, and then the point number we're going to use is 9. And let's go ahead and call this PK. And then you can hit enter twice. Okay. Notice PK did not get updated with its symbol because it recognizes the fact that, hey, that should be in here, but it's not. So what I need to do is update that, and notice it changes to what it should be. Down here I can also update it, and it changes. Okay, let's go ahead and draw a line. So we're going to do a line from PK to PK and hit the escape key twice. Alright, so we have one more property point to establish, which will finish off the 2 lines. And if you notice, it's called point 10 on our schematic. And we have 2 bearings that we can use to establish this. We don't really have distances. Although if you look at the plat, you have both bearings and distance. Actually, let's see, the plat does have bearings and distances. So you could use 2 distances to establish it. You could use 2 bearings to establish it. You could use bearing and a distance from one of those points to establish it. And all of those solutions would give you slightly different answers. So from a resolution standpoint, if you were doing surveying, you would have to know why you're going to do that. We're going to do a bearing-bearing intersection, and we're just going to do that just because I want to show you how these bearing things work. So we're going to use the bearing from 9. We're going to hold that bearing, the 1 degree 47 4 seconds, and then we're going to hold the other bearing from 11. 88, 12, 56. It also gives me the ability to be offset from the bearing, so it's like sitting out over here, even though you're sitting here or sitting out here. So you can be left or right of the line, even holding the bearing, which is kind of a really neat process. So what we're going to do is go over here to points. We're going to do an intersection this time, and notice they have quite a few different types of intersections, and we're going to use what's called a direction, or some people refer to this as bearing. I'm going to do a direction intersection. And when I specify a start point, this is now looking for an AutoCAD snap, like an endpoint or something. Now I could also go over here and grab one of the Civil 3D snaps, so I could use that. But since it's convenient and I got an endpoint probably already popping up, when I get that endpoint symbol, just click it. You should get an X that shows up on that. And what it's asking me now for is the direction. And it needs to know whether you're talking bearing or azimuth. So I'm going to type in B for bearing. And now it says, okay, what is your bearing angle and quadrant? So the first thing I need to do is give it a quadrant. Now I can use the quadrant and bearing that it's showing me. It's just going to put it in this direction, but that doesn't matter, because all that does is just allows you to shoot it one way versus the other. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use quadrant 4. And we're going to enter the bearing, and the bearing is 1 degree and 47 seconds and or minutes and 4 seconds. Okay, notice that we are shooting into a northwest direction, but that's not actually a problem at all. That's going to just kind of take the long way around if you think about it. And then what we're going to now do is establish no offset, and we're going to specify the next start point. Okay, and this time I'm going to use that bearing, which is northeast. So I'm going to type in B for bearing and give it the quadrant. The quadrant is 1, and this is 88.1256. No offset. And notice it shot those two together, and what I get is the green X. So the point number is going to be 10. And the description, let's go ahead and we'll call this an IP as well. And we're going to then escape. And there's our point. Again, boundary recognizes that needs to be updated. We'll take care of that. Let's go ahead and construct a line to finish this off. So I'm going to create my line object, and I'm going to do it from, I do the right one, by point object. Okay, so I want to get the point object, and point object. So there's my boundary line. Okay, let's go ahead and update the point, update my point. I'm going to go ahead and update blank while I'm at it. Just update that. And we're good to go. So we have one more thing that we're going to complete on this lab. And like I said, this is just kind of an introductory lab, just getting you used to the whole process. There's a lot of power in Civil 3D, as we'll see over the next couple of labs. But what we're going to generate now is that last manhole. That manhole exists at point 18. And point 18 is an intersection of two distances. And the one distance is coming from point 1 down to 18, and the other one is coming from 3 down to 18. So this is commonly referred to as a distance-distance intersection. Some people out in the field, they call this two-taping, where you're taping two directions. It is an okay way of locating points. It wouldn't be something you use a lot. The one big problem with this type of solution is that it yields two solutions typically, and so you have to pick the proper solution. And sometimes it's very obvious, and sometimes it's not. So if you're going to do a distance type of intersection, you should preferably do it with like three distances as opposed to 2. So what we're going to do is come over and again go to points. We're going to go to intersections, and we're going to look at our distance operation, and that's that right there. So again, it wants me to specify the first radial point. I can just do that by snapping the endpoint of the line. Okay, and there's my point. And I've got 240.01 is my radius value. Wants to know the other location. So again, I want to make sure I'm getting to that point, and this is 121.82. Go ahead and select that. There's your two solutions. You pick the one that's correct, and then you tell it the number, 18, and this is going to be called manhole. And then we're going to go ahead and hit the escape key, and there's our points. So let's get rid of this, and let's find a line for the sewers, and then we'll generate the sewers. So we're going to use a C sanitary sewer pipe layer. So I think you'll find it down sanitary sewer pipe layer right there. They're all pretty similar in color. And I'm going to go ahead and grab point object. So I've got 19, 18, and ultimately 17. Okay, so if we do a zoom extents, we can see the extents of our project. The blue is our traverse, our control traverse with our control points. We have our boundary points and boundary lines on our boundary points, and then we also have our sanitary sewers. We don't have a layer for those guys yet, so let's go ahead and do that while we're thinking about that. It's going to go to a new, and we're going to create a sewer layer. You might want to call it sanitary. Okay, and let's see if they've got, I think they have a manhole kind of thing in here. Water valve. Well, there's a storm sewer sand manhole, so we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and use that one. Oh, there's sanitary sewer manhole. Description only. Yeah, we won't worry about it. We'll leave it at description only and tell it what to include. So we're going to include all points that have MH. Apply that, and again, you might want to look at your point list. That's a good check when you do these kind of things to make sure that everything got included. I've done this in the past where I've maybe misspelled my name over here and it didn't catch it, and so the point wasn't included even though I thought it should have been. So I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to update my blank points. Update. Okay, now let's kind of see how some of this plays out. If we put this guy to the top, okay, so I'm going to go to properties and I'm going to put the all points to the top. I want you to notice what happens to the labeling and the points themselves. The point style goes to the all points point group style because it's the one on top. So if we send that guy down to the bottom, the properties, we're going to send this guy to the bottom, and we start messing around with blank. So let's put the blank, let's promote that up to the top and then send it down one level. So I've got mine sanitary on top, blank, and then everything else under this is hidden at this point. So I'm going to apply that and hit OK. And what you'll notice is there's your what we've done is hidden the points. Obviously it doesn't affect line work because this is not a layer, so it's not exactly the same kind of concept as a layer at all. But it is taking and looking at that. If we bring these guys down one level, what I'm going to do is bring blank down one level. I'm going to now apply that and add the boundary points. Everything's working really nicely right now, but occasionally what will happen is you might shuffle some of these layers and things don't seem to work right. I'll see if we can see if we can get it to work. Let's do this. I'm going to send my control up a level, and I'm going to send my boundary down a level. So I've got sanitary control and blank. Apply that and OK it. Notice I still have everything there, it looks like, even though from a hierarchy standpoint I should really not be seeing my boundary points. And the reason is you have to force a regen in AutoCAD. So if you type in RE, and it will fix that for you. So you notice that it really does reflect that hierarchy. It just doesn't sometimes want to generate a regen for you. So you can force that anytime you want. RE, just remember that one. So let me do one more thing just as a recap. I'm going to go to my properties. I'm going to just get blank down at the bottom. So there's all of our points. We've generated points. We've generated points by doing several different types of entry types. We've dealt with point groups. Keep in mind that the all points point group always exists. This blank concept is really nice. We've just made sure that we've included all of those points. And we can view things. If I go here and look at edit points, I can open up the panorama. I can edit points within this, and notice this is showing me everything that's in my project, and I've currently got these locked because, as I explained before, I don't want to inadvertently grab one and move it. And eventually on any project I would probably lock a lot of them just so that I wouldn't want to mess with that. We can fix things in here, we can manipulate them. If I look at this group here and look at his edit points, notice it's just showing me the ones that are associated with that. So remember, these points exist in several different levels. And in fact, you could have boundary points that are both in this point group and another point group and a third point group. So they really only exist one place in the drawing, but they can exist in different point groups. And the blank gives me ultimate control and display. So what you can do is save this drawing, and then you're going to submit this drawing to me, and I will be looking at that. And as we go on every week now that we've got this up and running, we'll be building in and start working with some of these routines here. We're going to really start to get into this create panel. We're going to spend a lot of time in the create. We're going to spend a lot of time in the profile and section views, and a lot of time in this. But all the stuff that we've been talking about here, we'll be working with quite a bit. Okay. And I might not have mentioned this, I can't remember, but if you ever lose this guy, which is kind of easy to do, you can simply like do that. Whoops, not that one. It's talking about the tool space. Well, that isn't what I wanted to do. Here, put it back. If you ever lose the tool space, that's kind of a detriment because it's nice to use. That's what this guy's right here for. So I just wanted to catch up on that because I wasn't sure if I had explained that before. So that's it for this week's lab, and then we'll be taking a look at some more detailed information next time.